Hello and welcome to another Bodgit And Leggit video. Now we have a 2005 Peugeot Boxer van behind us and we are going to be doing a full clutch kit. Now, I had other problems with this van. I should have really filmed but I didn't have the time to go through yet. When it was cold, after maybe say 10 seconds of driving, it just had no power for maybe 30 seconds, maybe a minute, and then bang, all the power is back. Drove perfectly. I only did it when it was cold. Now, it turned out to be the mass sensor in the end. This is actually leaking. When I put a smoke machine on it, it's actually leaking. But not only that, you might not be able to see, but right in there, you can just see where the little hot should be, little hot knife, or not hot knife, but hot, just see it there, is missing on the second one. So this is just completely shot. Replace it with a new one and it's perfect. Now the tools I used during this job, I can't fit them all in here, so we're going to have to kind of do it in two parts. Some of these tools are optional, some of them you kind of need. Now the first thing, we use two gearbox or axle stands. 1/2 inch impact. A big gun, this is really handy. That helped me out an awful lot with the 1/2 inch flex head driver on it. The pump, again, fantastic. Lidl's or Aldi, I can't remember which one. A long flex head 1/2 inch. Brake clean. A torch. A mirror. Pliers, adjustable pliers. These are 6mm Allen key. These are 3/8. This is 16mm 3/8 and a 12mm 3/8. A 17 and an 8mm spanner. Snips. Pliers for the little clips, or plastic clips. And this is a S8, and that's what we use to drain the stuff out the gearbox. This is 24mm socket, 1/2 inch. Two long 3/8 extensions and a medium 3/8 extension. Again, 3/8 ratchet tool and the gearbox aligning tool. Right, and now the last lot. A lever bar, really handy. This is 24mm socket with just another breaker bar. Another ratchet, this is 1/2 inch with a medium extension, and this is 17mm, it looks like, yeah, 17mm socket on that. The 41mm socket, now I had to use, as you can see, a reducer because this is 3/8 and to 1/2 inch. A small 3/8 extension, 22mm socket, 24mm socket, 16mm socket, that's 22, that's 19, 16mm 1/2 inch, looks like 10mm 3/8, 13mm 3/8, and a T40 torque. Long flat bladed screwdriver, 5.5, 16mm socket, 19mm socket, an old screwdriver, and another 3/8 ratchet. And the hammer, sandpaper, and the jump pack I use to get power for my pump. Now, what we're going to do is, because the engine's very low down on these, we can't really support the engine at the top like we can with the normal cars. We're going to have to support it at the bottom. There's a couple of ways we can do it, but we still need to do a bit of work on the top first. So let's show you what we need to do on the top before we get underneath. Right, you're not going to really be able to see. This is all broken as well. This was already like that before I touched it. We need to take the airbox off because just down here is the gearbox mount, and there's going to be a couple of bolts on the top. Again, you can't really see that. There's just going to be one clip there and a couple of GB clips down there, and that will allow us to take the airbox out. So I'm going to take the airbox out, and as much as I can from the top first. Once I've done that, I'll show you what I've done, and then we can go underneath. Okay, the dog can see the rabbit now. And before anyone asks, I know they're going to say, no, I didn't break this. It was already broke when I got to it. So, anyway, we can now see the gearbox mount there. We don't need to touch it yet. We just kind of needed to see it. You can't really see the top gearbox bolt, so I'm hoping I can kind of do them from underneath. So, We now need to lift this up, take off the wheels, take out the drives, or drain the gearbox first actually, but let's lift it up and see what we can see. Right, we're underneath. There's a couple of things we can see. With this, you don't actually need to disconnect the line for the clutch. All we need to do is disconnect the bolts here, and then it means we don't need to bleed the system afterwards. We can just take off the slave cylinder separately, which is kind of handy. Another thing is, we can see from the drive shaft, we have 4 big bolts, and we can actually then flop the suspension down to release the 2 drive shafts. We're going to have to release both drive shafts in this case, just because the way they're set up. We have this is our plug here to drain off the gearbox, so we need to do that first really before we do anything else. We have a rear gearbox mount, and we have no more support on the engine. So I have a couple of things I can do to support that engine. But the first things I'm going to do, I'm going to whip off the wheels, no point me showing you that, and I'm going to drain the fluid, and again there's no point me showing that. Once I got to that stage, we'll crack on. Move this drive shaft, and just be aware that these bolts, there are 12mm nut on them, but you have to stick the bolt in before the drive shaft goes back on. You take these bolts out and stick the drive shaft in, these bolts won't clear. So I kind of just tend to leave them in there just so you don't forget. There is the drive shaft on the deck. The next one is going to be this one. So I'm going to show you how to do this one. They're 24mm. This is a 41mm, so I've already undone that. So I'm just going to get the camera set up and I'll show you how to take off this. Okay, let's do this. So I'll turn the wheel out so we can see. I'm using a really short 24mm, just to give me a bit more room with the gun. Might not fit in this one. Be careful I don't trap the gun between this and the gearbox. Just got away with that. Also bear in mind we've just taken off these holders, so that's for the ABS sensor, these are for the brake lines, so make sure you put them back on as well. Drop the bolt, always a good idea. Now, I will tie this up. At the minute I'm just making sure this doesn't get too tight. Take off the 41mm nut. TV joint is loose. It is, I can push it with my fingers, that's good. So use an extension and push in on the TV joint if I can. Do have to just be careful of everything. The shock's now resting on it. And then see if we can just take it out. Could remove the shock from the side, that would be helpful. There we go. Now, is that enough? We are close. They're getting under a bit too much pressure. If we can just take that out, which we just don't have enough room. What I'm going to do is unclip them. There's a little 8mm here, should be able to undo that. They are just a bit too tight. If I undo this bracket for the brakes, it would just release the tension on it, and it'll also give me a bit more room, and they will not do any damage to the brake lines. For the sake of one bolt, it's worthwhile. There we go. Now, loads more room, enough to, yep, there we go. That one bolt stopping us, no more pressure on here. What I am going to do is just cable tie this back, just so it's not under any pressure at all. Now, That'll hold that. Now, let's see if this unbolts itself or unclips itself. Get a lever. Aha! Nice and easy. Not like the Ford one we did. And there we go. Drive shaft out. Now, what we can concentrate on, I can see at the back, gear link cables. We've got an earth strap here. You can just see that just here is an earth strap. See the clutch slave cylinder here, so I'm going to take that off. There's a dust guard under here. There's also looks like there's a couple of bolts, so I'm going to take off that. I'm going to take off the bolts underneath. I'm going to take off the engine mount here as well. Can you see that? There we go, this engine mount here. Again, there's no point me showing because it's just a couple of bolts. Once I got that off, we'll see what else we need to take off. Sorted. Okay, we took off the slave cylinder, two 13mm bolts. We've also took off the little dust shield here, which was two 6mm Allen keys, and that's now released or showed us that we have two more bolts down here for the gearbox. They look like maybe 15-16mm. The starter motor needs to come off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave all the wires on, so you can disconnect the battery or not. I don't really need to disconnect the battery because I'm not completely taking it off. I'm just sliding it to the side. But if your connections are kind of, looks like they're going to touch, then disconnect your battery. We've also got another bolt, two more. You can't really quite see. There's one here and there's one right at the top. So them two have to come off. Then you can just see the tail end of the gear link cables. See if we can get you a bit better. There we go. Hopefully you can see that a bit better now. There's the gear linkage cables, and then we've got the engine mount, the main gearbox mount, and then the second mount here. So I'm going to take off this second mount, take off the ringer bolts at the bottom. Again, no point me showing you because I'm just going to get in the way, and it's just removing bolts. Okay, we've got the rear engine mount off, or pendulum mount, whatever you want. You've got two 16mm and one 24mm, which is the one going straight through it, the bigger one of the two. That belongs up there. Right, so let's just kind of see, so you can see up here, you can see the two bolts I've removed off there, so there's no more on that side. What I do suggest you do is put new seals on your gearbox. We've also removed the, you can just see in the middle there, can you just see that wire? That's for the speedo, so we've disconnected that. Still need, you can just see, we still need to disconnect the gear link cables. Now what I like to do is try and disconnect the whole bracket rather than just take off. You just see it here with the torches. Can't really put my hand, but just here there's a little clip. Sometimes them clips can break, so I like to remove the whole bracket because you're just a lot safer to do it that way. The earth strap unfortunately broke the bolt, so we're going to have to replace that earth strap somewhere different, but that's not the end of the world. We have on the engine mount there, we have another bracket coming off. You can see it's just holding the water pipe, so we're going to have to disconnect that. And then we still have two bolts right at the top. You can just kind of see one there, can you? Just see it poking up in the middle of the screen. The reason why I'm showing all this is because I can't take it off and film at the same time because I'm on my own, there's no room. That's where I need a cameraman. So, what I'm going to do is I can't take it all off because the clutch is coming tomorrow and I don't want to leave the axle, my gearbox stands under there tonight. So, I'm not going to take the main mount off until I have the clutch in my hand. So it's just a couple more bolts and the gear linkage cables. That's all I can really do. Once I get the gearbox out, I'll show you where all the gear linkage cables and all the bolts and everything go a lot easier. Gearbox bolts. The gold ones are for the starter motor and the other ones are for the gearbox. So as you can see, we've got it all off. What I did for the back was, before I do that, I also got that cover, that plate up. You can just see it dangling there. I left the two 13mm bolts. Let's just get the camera back up there. You can see, can you see? No, not yet. There, you can just see the two 13mm bolts there I left back in on this plate here. That's just to hold the water pipe on. Now, someone has already been here before on these gear link cables because the connections were broke. Only one of them had the plastic. You see the white plastic clip there? The other one was completely missing. So what I did is I got a big lever bar in. You can just see the balls. See if I can zoom in here. It's going to be pretty awkward. Now there you go. You can just see the two balls there that hold the gear selectors on. So I just got a big lever bar in there and I just popped them off, and then they just fell out the connections. I've still got one more bolt right at the top of the gearbox. I just can't see it yet. I might have to let the gearbox down a little bit so I can actually physically get to it. But I don't want to do any more at the minute. You can see there we go. There's the last gearbox mount. I don't want to take that off yet until I have the gearbox, because like I said, I don't want the engine just dangling there. Well, it won't be dangling there, but I don't trust the transmission jack overnight to support the engine. So I'm going to leave that till tomorrow once I have the clutch here sorted. Right, this could be dangerous. There's no real engine support. I can't support it from the top yet. I do have one of them you can support from underneath, but there's no real place I can hold it to. I tried it, it's just not really. This is a lot safer, but obviously I still don't like this because these can still fail. But it is what it is. It's all I can do. We've got another one on the gearbox. I've loosened the 4 bolts at the top for the actual gearbox mounts, and I've managed to get the top bolt off the gearbox as well. And I just put this bolt in here just in case, just hand tight, just so nothing moved. Now, I should be able to kind of wiggle this gearbox and get this gearbox on this axle stand. But there's always a but. Anything can happen. So let's hope it doesn't. If we can get this in here, see if we can gingerly. Like the start motor is going to fall, which I don't particularly like. It's going to stay there. I'll have to support that start motor in some way. Get a couple of cable ties on that, I think, just so nothing can really move or go anywhere. Right, that's tied up. I've also tied up the water pipe, done it the same way. Let's see now if we can get this off. Be careful of this gearbox because the diff is at the back, so it's going to be kind of heavy at the back. And I don't want it to slip that way. I would prefer this differently. I can't. Kind of as good as I can get it on there, which isn't great to be honest. But I'd be better off there. I think I might be supporting it at the back. So just change this. No, that's not good either. This is such an awkward shape of a gearbox. Come on. Do not like this. I have a feeling I'm going to have to catch this gearbox because it's going to go the wrong way on me. Should come out, that's the thing. No, that's in my way now. So it's not going out. There we go. It's now off. It's wanting to go back. Right, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get these a lot better than what they are at the minute because I just don't like the way it's set up. And then we'll try and get it off. This is going to be a tricky one. Even this, which is a special attachment for the gearbox, even this won't go in properly to hold it. So, yeah, great. Now the problem was it's actually caught up on the gearbox mount. I normally, once I loosen the bolts that connect the actual gearbox to the mount, I normally remove the mount that connects to the topper mount. But I can't really see it on this gearbox, and they look like there was going to be plenty of room. I still think there is. I don't know though, most probably not looking at it now, because we're right up against the chassis leg. So I can't move the gearbox out this way, which I need to do. But we're going to give it a quick try. It's now a lot looser. Problem is, I just don't think it's going to be able to clear what I need it to. No. Definitely not. Right. So, what I'm going to have to do now is get this gearbox mount off. I'll quickly show you. Don't know how many bolts there is. There's normally 3 bolts, at least 3 bolts anyway. 1, 2. I can see 3 little things standing up on the gearbox, so there's actually 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll quickly show you that. And I'm going to have to try and, once I get that off, the gearbox is out. Be careful of a few other little things, but yeah. This is going to be interesting. Right, you can just see it here. Here's the gearbox mount, and the problem is because it's sticking up, it's hitting the chassis leg here. That's a jewelry clip. So I've got you can see 1 bolt there, and you can't see the other 3. So once I get them off, I'll tell you what size they are and show you the actual unit itself. Okay, this is the mount. You definitely need a flex head ratchet for this, 100%. This is the mount where it actually bolts onto the frame of the car, and there was 4 90mm there. These are 22mm, 2 bolts, 2 studs, and this comes off. And as you can see, this is where the gear linkage cables actually come on, so that's all part of it. And also, these are the 2 13mm bolts where the clamp is on to hold the front water pipe. So that's the whole thing there. The problem I was having, because this is so long, this was hitting up against the chassis and I couldn't move the gearbox to the side anymore. So the gearbox is nice and free. It should come out now. Right, just be aware, when you take the gearbox mount off, you'll just see at the top of the screen now, I have the gear selector. And when you take it off, you disconnect the gear selector, just like I'm about to now. So when you put it back, make sure you have the gear selector in place. If not, you'll see where my hand is when I move in a second, there is a bolt. You can undo the bolt and you can actually slide the gear selector on or off. You can just see I'm putting the nut back on there now. It's just something to be aware of when you do this, because if you don't do it, what will happen is you will not be able to select your gears properly. You might only have, say, 1st, 3rd and 5th or something along them lines, or it might not even go in at all. So when you take the gearbox mount off, make sure you either line that up first or afterwards. Remove the nuts and put it on just like I've done there, and you will be good to go. Sorted. Okay, now I've got the actual mount off. I was able to release the reverse switch that was underneath. I couldn't actually see it before. So that's another good thing. But you always want to be careful when you're lowering the gearbox. Don't just lower it. Even if it's loose and you think you get it out, put it all the way down, because you might have an earth strap on it, you might have a sensor on it, something you just can't quite see. So what I should be able to do now, hopefully, is slide this gearbox out. There we go. It's on now a lot better. Slowly lower it down. Let that lower it down itself. I'm going to hit that, so this needs to come out like that, because I don't want to hit the gear linkage thing here with the frame. Right, see? Also, we've got the crankshaft sensor. You can't quite see it, but I'll show you once I get the gearbox off. Release that. Again, if I just put that straight down, I would have broke that. That's why you just go nice and slowly. Make sure nothing is caught. And here we go. You just see the crankshaft sensor coming in now. Hopefully you can see that. Just a 2-pin sensor. Now I've got this here. Where is the fill for this gearbox? Because I couldn't see it. And I still can't. It's not filled from the top, is it? I hope not, because it's going to be so awkward if it is. I still can't see it. Where's the fill? We'll see it when we get it out better, maybe. Not to worry, but it's out. So very carefully. Let's get this out. Now, what I can show you now. This is the crankshaft sensor here, just a 2-pin, as again, you know, don't want to break it if you can avoid it, obviously, because it's just going to cost you more money. These are the 2 bolts at the top that I just couldn't really see. Always replace the actual seals, you might as well. This is for the speedo, and we turn it around. We've got the sensor here. I'm presuming that's for the reversing lights. There's the crankshaft one here. This is where the actual engine mount or the gearbox mount was actually on. As you can see, that was hiding underneath there. Then we have our gear links cables. Now I normally do take this bracket off. It's only 3 bolts, but this was all damaged, so it was just as easy to do that. And oh yeah, I was saying that. And that's it. But I can't see any fill plug here whatsoever. Nothing that's coming out obvious. Now I know how much oil goes into it, so we can just fill it from the top, but I still like, you know, a nice fill plug, and I can't see one. And I'm still looking. Everyone's screaming at the TVs now, telling me where it is, but I cannot see one. The fill, or the drain, was an Allen key, so the drain's Allen key. Normally, the fill's an Allen key. And I can't see any. Or sometimes you have a bigger bolt on here, which is a fill as well. But again, I can't see that. I can't see a fill. Anyway, we'll worry about that when we come to it. If it's from the top, it's just really annoying because I'm just going to struggle to get to it. But that's it, people. Then we have our release button, which is just come apart in my hands. Yeah, that's just falling apart. Now, this clutch actually wasn't slipping. It was just a really, really high bite point. So it was only a matter of time before it actually started slipping. If you've got any sort of wetness or oil, you can replace the seal in here. Again, you know, once you've got it out, you might as well replace the seal, because if it breaks down, you know, 6 months down the line, well, that feels bad. It sounds bad. I put it next to the microphone. Up here. Hopefully you can hear that. So there we go. Right, what I'm going to do now is clean the inside of this. I'll take the clutch off and I'll show you that one. Clean the inside of this, blow all the crap off there with the air line, get all the dust out, and then you can get ready to put it back on. Is this nice and stable on this? Yeah, it is. Not. Ready, ready. Where am I going to grab it? Nowhere to grab it. There we go. Easy. Now let me clean this and then